With us now to break this all down is national politics reporter for Politico, Katie Glick. She's in Politico's newsroom in Arlington, Virginia, and in Washington, CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris. Okay, Steve, the timing. 2 days after Trump announced a new campaign manager and campaign CEO, we know that the new manager, Kellyanne Conway, actually said on CTM Manafort was going to remain as chairman. And so I'm wondering, does his resignation really come as a surprise to anyone?
No, not at all. I mean, I know he put out a memo to staff this week saying that he was going to stay on, and this was not about a shakeup. But this was a shakeup. I think everybody expected this was going to happen. This is the same MO that happened to Corey Lewandowski, the last campaign manager who got shoved out the door when Manafort came aboard. It was very clear that hiring Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway, they were shifting strategy, they're shifting their staff up, and Manafort was going to leave. Compounding that were all these stories about his connections to the pro-Russian element in Ukraine and whether he did anything illegal. That has become a real distraction to the campaign, and so that was part of this, but I think the bigger issue was they were replacing him. He was already on the outs with Trump, and this was expected by the end of the week, and it's the end of the week and he's gone.
Katie, we've seen not only on the back of these changes, we've seen Donald Trump using a teleprompter for the last 3 or 4 of his speeches, something that he had mocked in the past. It appears to a lot of people that these management changes have a lot to do with keeping him on message. On the other hand, though, Steve Bannon is known as a bare-knuckle fighter. Breitbart is not exactly a nonpartisan news organization, if you want to call it a news organization. And so I'm wondering if bringing these folks in is, in fact, to unleash Trump and not have him on that prompter.
Well, hey, great to be with you. And certainly there's been a lot of talk about that, taking a look at Steve Bannon's background in particular, and also Kellyanne Conway's. Kellyanne has worked for a lot of more conservative candidates, candidates that don't always necessarily have the best relationships with the Republican establishment. There's been a lot of talk about, well, are these new changes in leadership of the Trump campaign, part of an effort to let Trump be Trump, as people, sometimes say? Is this an effort to sort of revert back, going, full bore to the candidate that we saw in the Republican primary, a candidate that a lot of folks perhaps saw as brash, as bombastic, but also one who, of course, won the primary. Over the summer we've seen sort of a tug of war almost at times between Trump really sort of speaking his mind, continuing to make statements that certainly his base loves, but that have perhaps raised eyebrows in other corners of the general electorate, and at the same time, as you noted, has also delivered a number of speeches via teleprompter. Lots of talk about whether this is another Trump pivot, as folks sometimes put it. And so it looks like we're sort of having a balance here. Kellyanne Conway, of course, the new campaign manager, has said that she wants to let Trump, sort of tap into that personality, that persona that did in fact help him win the primary. But at the same time, she said that she's hoping to bring more attention to where he is on policy issues, to keep the message focused a little bit more tightly there. So, that was, certainly part of his effort in the last couple of speeches that he's given, and we'll see if he's able to stay on that sort of message or not.
And boy, last night did he let one roll that surprised so many people. A pretty surprising confession. It was at a rally in North Carolina. Let's take a listen.
Sometimes in the heat of debate and speaking on a multitude of issues, you don't choose the right words, or you say the wrong thing. I have done that. And believe it or not, I regret it. Thank you. And I do regret it, particularly where it may have caused personal pain. Too much is at stake for us to be consumed with these issues. But one thing I can promise you this: I will always tell you the truth.
Incredible. And not only that, but Kellyanne Conway's manager said that he might actually apologize possibly to the Gold Star family who insulted the Khan family. Are we seeing a turning point in the Trump campaign in these final weeks?
Absolutely. I mean, this flies in the face of what Trump has has done over the last year, in which he was asked specifically after he commented on John McCain's military service last year, after the Gold Star family dust up this summer, do you regret what you said? And he said, absolutely not. So this is a clear shift. I think there's a realization and probably a realization on the part of Donald Trump that his unfavorable numbers are getting in the way of him making this election competitive. He's seeing the poll numbers. They're just going down and down and down. And so this is an effort to turn the page, to basically say, fine, let's not talk about that stuff anymore. Let's move forward. And then shortly after those comments, he went in and continued on with his drawing contrast with Hillary Clinton, painting her as somebody he believes would be terrible at being president of the United States. And so that's where his focus is moving forward. He's got a new ad out today. In the ad, he talks about Hillary Clinton's America and how it's rigged against Americans. Those are the kinds of things that he wants to say moving forward. Those are the kinds of things Republicans want to hear him say moving forward. The question is, the message that has the potential to resonate, will he allow it to resonate by staying out of the way and not stepping in it like he's done so many times in recent weeks and months?
Katie, we learned obviously that Donald Trump and Mike Pence, his running mate, have arrived in Louisiana to tour the historic flooding in that state. Clearly, it looks good. I mean, that's what presidential candidates do. I wonder, though, in the 90 or so, 80 days or so until the election, when people have had a year to get to know who Donald Trump is, at least as far as a presidential candidate, is this a little too late, or does he still have a chance to salvage this?
Well, I mean, certainly Louisiana itself looks like a pretty safe state for him. But speaking more broadly to the question of, is this a real new direction for Donald Trump and his campaign? I think it really remains to be seen. And even if it is, as you brought up, another open question as to whether, even if it is sort of a consistent shift that he stays with, if he does sort of make that decision to stay fully on message, keep the focus completely on Hillary Clinton rather than on, others in the Republican Party, for example, which is something that he certainly has done, in the past year. Even if he does stay more on message and kind of embrace a more traditional candidate persona, I do think it's an open question as to whether that is enough to change the minds of some folks, including some Republicans, in some battleground states who have a number of reservations about him just because he has up until this point been such a non-traditional candidate. I just got back from North Carolina, which is, of course, a state that Mitt Romney won in 2012. It's a pretty deep red state typically. But one thing that I found was that Donald Trump is trailing Hillary Clinton in a number of polls there, in part because he has yet to consolidate that Republican base. There's still a lot of folks who, were Mitt Romney voters, who were John McCain voters, George W. Bush voters, who tend to be maybe a little bit more moderate, live in the suburbs, but they still have some real reservations about Trump, in part because of all those statements that he appeared to, try to maybe distance himself from a little bit yesterday. So whether this, new line of messaging, this new focus is enough to bring them on board is a critical question.
National politics reporter for Politico, Katie Glick, and CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris. Thank you both.
Thank you.